major revelation in the New York Times that the deep state is real and a clear and present danger to our constitutional republic. The New York Times took the extraordinary step of allowing some anonymous coward from the Trump administration to publish a piece, a full-length opinion editorial on its pages, attacking President Trump and confirming there's resistance within the administration to his policies and his goals and agenda. Now remember, who is elected to the presidency? The president, Donald Trump. People he appoints, officials that report to him are supposed to implement his agenda. And if they don't like it, they can leave. It's simple as that. But here we have an admission in the New York Times that there is a criminal enterprise afoot. I'll let the train pass. So here we have this admission in the New York Times that there's a criminal enterprise afoot within the administration to thwart the president's agenda for really no good reason, because the opinion piece is it's all over the internet, so you can look at it yourself. The author admits that there are many senior officials in his own administration that are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. And then this person writes, "I would know I am one of them." Now he suggests that he's really a right-winger, but obviously he's a lawless thug who is attacking the president from a position of power and trust, a public trust, in an anonymous way, and taking the law into his own hands and bypassing the will of the American voters as expressed in the presidential election. And you know, what's interesting about this opinion editorial, it's also kind of threatening. Given the instability many witnessed, there were early whispers within the cabinet of invoking the 25th Amendment, which would start a complex process for removing the president. I don't believe that. But no one wanted to precipitate a constitutional crisis. So we will do what we can to steer the administration in the right direction by their lights, not by the lights of the voters, until one way or another it's over. What does that mean? You know, as I said, a criminal conspiracy is afoot here. I think the Justice Department needs to investigate this. I think the FBI needs to investigate this, assuming someone in the FBI actually didn't author it. I think the Secret Service needs to investigate this opinion editorial because of its threatening nature. But talk about the laws that are at issue here. There are laws against treason because, you know, when you substitute your own will on foreign policy, because they spend a lot of time talking about Russia here. By the way, there are no substantive complaints about Mr. Trump. They agree with, according to the op-ed, this writer agrees with him on a lot of policies. They don't like the way he runs meetings because they kind of veer off what they were supposed to be about. Well, isn't that what meetings in business are often about? Having meetings and the topic at issue gets sometimes sidetracked, and that's a reason to commit sedition? And in the area of foreign policy, depending on what this op-ed writer is doing, they may be committing treachery. But it's certainly in the least sedition. And sedition generally is efforts to overthrow a lawful government. And that's what's going on here. And of course, the New York Times is cheering it along. The media is gleefully asking cabinet officials whether they wrote the op-ed. I tell you, I guarantee you no cabinet official wrote this. I suspect no one in the White House wrote it. It doesn't read as if there's someone in the White House who wrote it. I suspect it's a second or third tier official, probably not appointed by the president, meaning someone who requires Senate confirmation, probably a bureaucrat who's been elevated and stupidly appointed by a political appointee of the president who hates the president. And I can tell you, the Justice Department should be investigating this, the Secret Service should be investigating this, but you know how this goes. It's the deep state investigating itself. And so I suspect they won't do much here, or not much will be done. So you can, as I jokingly tweeted, this sounds like a job for Judicial Watch. And you can bet that Judicial Watch will do the investigation that we're able to do under the law to figure out who is behind this seditious conspiracy against the president and against you and against our constitutional form of government, against our republic. That's what is at issue here with the deep state. And I love the fact that the leftist media makes fun of the deep state and then writes in its organ, the New York Times, its chief organ, the New York Times, allows an op-ed to be published that confirms that there are people within the administration whose goal is to thwart the president's agenda. Now, in this case, they say they're Republicans who kind of want him to succeed, but change his direction on areas they don't want to admit to. But the deep state generally doesn't like reform. They don't like the aggressive tack this president is taking in terms of trying to go after the swamp as best as he's able. And so they're willing to break the law and break the rules in order to thwart him. So I don't know what the Justice Department's going to do. I don't know what the FBI is going to do, or the Secret Service or anyone else, but you can trust that Judicial Watch is going to try to do its best to figure out who this person is and who else is working with them. So this is a real crisis, and many of you are older than me, but I've been around Washington for longer than I care to admit to. I've never seen anything like this. They don't like President Trump, so the rule of law doesn't apply to him. The rules of our constitutional republic, the rights and powers he has as granted by Article 2 of the Constitution, he doesn't get to exercise. And if you don't like the way he behaves, or you don't like the way he talks, it gives you, according to this lawless approach, it gives you the right to thwart his policy and thwart his agenda while being paid to advance it. We point out in an op-ed, I think it's going to be published this weekend, that officials like this don't take an oath to defend and support the Constitution, uphold the Constitution. This is an oath breaker here being published in the New York Times. No hero, and of course it's anonymous. If it was the constitutional crisis they pretend it is, why aren't they being public? So we're going to find out. We're going to do our darndest to find out what's going on here.